Hey everybody, this is Perch, and this video talking about politics, and in this case, not politics in comics, but people are calling them politics anyway. One of the consequences, I think, of our current system and the fact that so much money, attention, and just overall commitment and attachment has been made around politics is now every conversation people will throw out the politics as the reason behind it. Is Crayola coming out with some new colors? They recently announced this box of different flesh tone, which, as somebody who used to color with crayons back in the old days, this is awesome. That we're getting actual variants of skin color in crayon form. This is not a bad thing, but it's political. And everything has to be looked through a lens of, is this politics? Is this woke? Is it not woke? Is it right wing? Is it Trumpism? It's these terms have infected all of it, to the point that you see articles written about how Legos are supporting the patriarchy and are political. And as a parent with two kids, I can tell you it's maddening. Because almost any product, anything we want to buy, any activity we want to do, there's someone somewhere out on the internet screaming about how it's political. As I mentioned, as people have been listening to the show, I recently drove up from Colorado back to Pacific Northwest here, went through Wyoming. What can possibly be said about driving through Wyoming? It's a state, you have to get through it, but apparently that's a political choice. I thought it was just a road that with a lot of nothing around it for the majority of the drive, but apparently that's a political choice. And all of this is nonsense, of course, but this is how everyone is talking and acting and behaving. And so when it comes to comic books, we're inserting a lot of things into politics that do not need to be there, that aren't really politics. Now, I'm not saying there's none. I'm not saying that when Tom Taylor does, the Superman Son of Kal-El #2, and there's a school shooting, which again I think is one of the stupidest things. Like, you're trying to appeal to a younger audience, like, don't do school shootings. If you're trying to appeal to a religious audience, don't have the stories about priests molesting children like that. Like, you steer away from those topics that are going to make it hard for you to gather the audience you're going after. But regardless of all that, in this book, Superman Son of Kal-El, school shooter has written thoughts and prayers on the bullets that he's spraying out into to try and hurt the kids. Obviously, that's a political choice. It's a political choice because we heard about thoughts and prayers and it became meme worthy, and everybody was talking about that as either a nice thing to say or eye-rolling thing to say. So it became part of the political divide. So tapping into that extends that further. It keeps it going. But many other things are not really politics. Not everything has to be. If Superman is going to save some people trying to flee their country, in this case, same comic book, John Kent, there's this country, actually comes from the Wildstorm universe, if you remember that. There's a country, Gamora, and it was an evil country or evil system in the Authority back when it was in Wildstorm, and it seems like it's evil again here. It's described as supposedly a paradise. Desperate people fleeing the country doesn't fit with the expensively constructed propaganda. Now, sure, is that political? Not terribly. I mean, again, unless we want to start attaching a bunch of things to it that does not necessarily be there. People are fleeing the country that is ostensibly evil. It's got a shiny facade to it. And so everybody's like, why would anybody flee this place? And, the government doesn't really want headlines of people fleeing it. But John Kent flies over there and helps people out and helps them flee this country because that's what they want to do. And this is undoubtedly going to come back to haunt him as he gets embroiled in a bunch of silliness. But keep in mind, we've seen this plot before. It's actually not terribly unlike way back Genosha in the Uncanny X-Men, where you had Genosha, which was in theory supposed to be this beautiful hyper-tech city that this area that was amazing, but it was built on mutant labor, and that was kind of the dark underbelly of it. And some of the mutants tried to flee, and the government went to go capture them back. Not the exact same story, but similar. But back when that story was going on, back when Claremont was doing this in Uncanny X-Men, you didn't see a bunch of people chirping about how this was political. You didn't see people talking about how it was a political statement from Chris Claremont or any of the rest, despite the fact that you've got a government that is not what it seems. You've got slavery in his case. They were enslaving mutants and brainwashing them. You have refugees, and you have the X-Men going in there and try and fix it. You didn't see a bunch of articles talking about how this was a political stance. You didn't see a bunch of people going in saying, keep my politics out of my books, Claremont. None of that, because it was just really pretty much a story. But now everybody is so highly tuned that everything is political. And if it even smells like laws or guns or government or any kind of social issue or anything, it's political. And what this means is we get all these articles and all these arguments of people talking about how comics have always been political. And maybe the right thing to say here is, hey, the definition of political has changed. Suddenly, political is a much more massive bubble than it was before. It's not just it's not just, these aren't just world topics. These aren't just environments that our characters are playing in. They're every single step, every single story, every single panel has to be a political stance. Does John Kent have a new friend with purple hair? Well, it's a political statement about the LGBTQ community. Is this character who's got purple hair gay? Who knows? Maybe. Nobody really knows. He's got, or pink hair. Sorry, pink hair. Pink hair it changes everything. Purple hair is ridiculous, but pink hair. These are. The question I guess I would have is any of this making comics fun? Like, are we better off now viewing everything possible from a political lens? And like I mentioned at the beginning, it's not just comics. This is toys, it's commercials, it's TV shows, it's movies, it's music. Every single thing has to fit into politics. And to me, when I see this stuff, I always wonder, well, who is benefiting? Because by and large, most of the people seem miserable. They just want to enjoy what they don't want to have to think about all this. Twitter doesn't seem like a happy place. When you hang out there and you see people giving their various political takes on things, nobody seems cheerful. Even no matter how much Kevin Smith smiles in those photos, the eyes are dead. Like, nobody seems terribly happy to be doing this. The comics, the entertainment is certainly not better for it. You're not getting more out of the comic by equating it to, what Biden did in Afghanistan. So who's benefiting from this? I mean, the answer is some news sites that are getting clickbait ads. They're benefiting. The TV shows where, the commentators who need us to really believe everything is political, and you should be mad. You should be glad about the politics you like. You should be really mad about the politics you don't like. And you should just be angry all the time over this kind of stuff. Those people are benefiting because this is how they've attracted their audience now. Their audience is completely geared and wired to wanting to hear the latest on who is either winning or losing in this political football game. But the comics are worse off for it. And what's funny is it's hard to tell sometimes what the writer is doing. When Tom Taylor writes thoughts and prayers on bullets to reenact a school shooting in his comic, obviously he's making a political statement. I mean, he lives in Australia. Maybe he should be making a statement about how they're shooting dogs down there that for COVID reasons. But apparently, American school shootings are more fun. Sure. But all this kind of stuff, it wears us out. And in the comments of my videos, more than half of them, people want to explain to me why the root behind all of this kind of stuff is progressivism, it's socialism, it's woke people, it's politics again. In a lot of cases, it doesn't fit. It's just people are wired to view everything through that lens. And if we're going to enjoy comics again, we're going to have to get rid of some of that kind of stuff. Because no, not every comic is political. And no, comics have not always been political in this way. We've changed the definition of politics to mean everything. And in that, the story takes a back seat to whatever agenda we think the writer is pulling off in the comic. Superman standing up to the government that wants to seize some alien bit of technology is not a new storyline. We've seen this before. We saw this, we did the interview with Eric Luke, who wrote Wonder Woman. That was an excellent interview. And they had storylines similar to this. Was it political? I mean, Eric Luke didn't really think so. He thought he was writing a good story. But today, everything has to be political. And it's time for, I think, the readers and the people who enjoy comics to start standing up to it and going, you know what? No, not interested. We're not going to be baited into calling every single panel, everything political, everything politics. It's not interesting to us. Well, I'm tired of being manipulated by Bleeding Cool and by, The Beat, who want us to view everything through this lens because it makes them money. I just want to enjoy comics. What about you? Thanks for listening.